Hello everybody and welcome back to the Blues Knot channel. Today I am back with another video. In fact, I am actually back for the third time today with another video, as this is my third recording of this evening. By the way, let me just move this here a little bit. But yeah, like I said, this is my third recording of this evening. I think this probably is a record because I don't think I ever done 3 recording in a single day, and it is currently 11:05 in the evening, so I'm doing this very late, and actually this video will not be uploaded until tomorrow. But this is basically the kind of previewing every single game that's gonna happen this week in the opening week of the MLS season. We got 10 games in week number 1. There's 3 teams that will not be playing in the opening week, and I believe they are Chicago, Colorado, and also New York will not be playing in this opening week. But other than that, everybody should be playing this week. And yeah, let us get this going straight away, and we start with the first game of the day, which will be Toronto versus Columbus. Obviously, this is a rematch of the Eastern Conference semifinal, or actually not semifinal, I'm sorry, but the Eastern Conference final. This is actually wrong, though. And in that game, Toronto, of course, won both leg. Well, they won the second leg. They didn't win the first leg. I think the first leg was a 0-0 draw. And Toronto somehow, in some way, sneak it in the second leg and made it to the MLS Cup final, which they won, and now they are the defending champ. And obviously for the Crew, they definitely want to get some revenge after that really heartbreaking loss in the conference final, but I really don't see how they can do it in this match, because TFC is just unbeatable at home last season, and I just don't see how in the world that's going to change. And in many ways, you could even say that TFC has just got stronger this year. I mean, they continue to add in their depth. They got rid of a couple of guys, but they've been able to replace them with some upgrading of their own. And yeah, for Toronto, I think that this should be a win for them. Although the question for Toronto in this game is that whether or not are they going to start a very strong squad, because they had a midweek game against the Rapids, and you know they play an A squad. Greg Vanney actually put out an A squad for that game, which was kind of odd because I thought they didn't need to play their strongest team against the Rapids. You know, they were up 2-0 on the good, so I don't really think they needed to do it, but Greg Vanney did it. And now he has to deal with another situation where there's going to be a midweek game for TFC, and they have to play against Tigres in the CCL. And that game, for sure, that he has to put his strongest squad, because Tigres, if you guys don't know, they are the champions of Liga MX. So this is a heavyweight fight in the quarterfinal in the CCL between TFC and Tigres, and you know, certainly TFC really need their strongest squad for that game. So would they rest some guys for this one? Would Greg Vanney kind of put in like a B kind of squad against Columbus? And even if they do, I still think they will win, because their B squad is just as good as any other A squad in this league right now. That is how good Toronto is. So for me, I think Toronto can definitely win this game. And yeah, now next up, it's Houston versus Atlanta. Houston, of course, also went to the conference finals. Surprisingly, they definitely weren't the team that a lot of people picked them to be going that far into the playoffs, but unfortunately they just come up short from reaching the MLS Cup as they lose to the Sounders. Well, Atlanta, they of course had an incredible inaugural season, and unfortunately they couldn't deliver in the playoffs, and they lost to the Columbus Crew. And you know, for me, this is an interesting game, because you would say that Atlanta has the upper edge on this, but Houston is a team that is, since this game is at BBVA Compass Stadium, I think this is going to be a tougher game for Atlanta than what many Atlanta fans would think. I mean, I think that Houston will not be afraid of that Atlanta United attack, even though that attack of Atlanta is just the deadliest in the league. And Houston last season, they were pretty much unbeatable at home. I mean, they were literally just, they were pretty much making BBVA Compass Stadium like a fortress. I mean, nobody can actually win against Houston whenever Houston is at home. And the only reason why they didn't finish like near the top of the Western Conference is because they suck on the road. So for Houston, I think this is going to be a big game for them. I mean, I don't know if they're going to try to improve on the away form, which was just so bad, and how they're going to try to put a little bit pressure off of their home form. But, I would say maybe this could potentially be a draw. Also for Atlanta, they do not have Ezekiel Borco for them, but that's okay because they still have Joseph Martinez, Hector Villalobos, and also Miguel Almiron, and also potentially they're going to play Julian Gresso in place of Ezekiel Barco's position. So yeah, they still have plenty of firepower even without the record signing. So I think Atlanta could win this one, but I won't be surprised if this is a draw between Houston and Atlanta. But next up, it's gonna be the Union versus New England, and yeah, if you're a neutral fan, it's going to be pretty hard to watch this one because this one probably is the most uninspiring game throughout these 10 games. And this is no disrespect to Union and Revs fan, but, both teams missed the playoff last season. That looked like it's going to be the case again this season. Obviously the Union, this will be the first time they will actually have David Accam playing for them, and we'll see if he can of course tear up that New England defense, which is just god awful. I mean, it is just absolutely god awful, and it's really hard to say who wins this one because both of these teams are not very good. But since Philly is at home, I'm gonna say they're gonna win it. New England doesn't win a lot of road game either, so yeah, I think Philly could win this one. But if it's a draw, I wouldn't be surprised either. It could be a boring 0-0 draw. I mean, it doesn't sound like an inspiring matchup with two just really bad teams in the East going at each other. Yeah, so for me, I'm going to say probably that one is going to be a draw. And then, of course, next up, it's Orlando City versus DC United. Of course, both teams missed the playoffs last season. Both teams was actually in the bottom part of the Eastern Conference, with DC United finished dead last and Orlando City surprisingly finished 10th place last season. But we all know that this is not the same Orlando City team that finished 10th place. This is a revamped Orlando City team that is just going all in this year, putting all the marbles in, and it's really up to Jason Christ's job to try to somehow, in some way, organize the team and just play to a potential for them to make it to the playoffs and even compete in the East. I mean, the amount of players that they bring in this offseason, the amount of talent that they brought in has to be said that Orlando City is going to make the playoffs this year, because if they don't make the playoff with that kind of talented squad, then Jason Christ is going to be in serious trouble. And I already said that he potentially will be the first manager to get sacked because of all that pressure he has. Meanwhile, for DC United, they definitely have improved in terms of the midfield and also up front, but the defense is what I'm worried about DC United, and I think that's going to be the downfall again for this year. And also the fact that they have a really brutal schedule. They're going to be on the road a lot, so they're going to have to get used to this. And they're going to also have to get used to losing, because I really think Orlando City should win this one. They started well last season, and I think they're going to do the same thing here. they have on that team should be just good enough against a really bad DC United kind of defense. But next up, it's Dallas versus RSL. Both of these teams, of course, missed the playoffs. But what's interesting about them missing the playoffs is that both of these teams were the team that were fighting for that last spot in the West last season. And unfortunately, both of them missed out. Of course, my San Jose Earthquakes was able to just sneak it in on the last day. They beat both of these teams. And, you know, for Dallas, obviously, there is some serious problem coming in to this game. And, you know, in the prediction video, I talked about how Dallas, this looks like it's going to be a redemption year for them. You know, this is a year that Oscar Pereira proves to everybody that that team that went on that massive collapse last season was just a fluke, and that we can, of course, come back to the Supporters Shield kind of winning team that we were 2 years ago. And then on Wednesday, they basically crash out of CCL, even though they beat Taro 3-2. And that game, even though they won, the goal that they conceded was really the difference. And the goal that they conceded was just really bad goals to concede. Just goals that could have easily prevented. I think there was also a howler in there by Jesse Gonzalez, which, by the way, Jesse Gonzalez, he was once a very hyped up kind of goalkeeper, and he was once considered to be the next goalkeeper for the U.S. men's national team. But now, last season, just like the rest of the FC Dallas team, he basically took a really, really bad turn to the worst, and he literally just fall off the cliff. And, you know, I don't know. I mean, they're playing an RSL team that is just going to be really good this season. I really think RSL is, you know, with all those young talent they have, with all those guys like Jefferson Savarino, Justin Glad, Albert Rusnak, Joe Plata, all those kind of young attacking threat for RSL. You know, this should be a pretty good year for them, and, you know, I'm going to say this one is a draw because Dallas is playing at home, and they did win their last game, so, you know, I don't think they'll get confident for winning the last game because they're now knocked out because of that away goal situation, and they're certainly down with confidence, but you never know. I think Dallas really need to prove themselves that they can be that team a couple of years ago, but there's a lot of question with this team, and yeah, I would say that it should be a draw in this game, but most likely RSL may figure them out in this game. But yeah, so yeah. Next up, it's the game that I already talked about, but I just put it up there because I just want to quickly mention this game. It's San Jose versus Minnesota. What does this game have in common? Well, this was the game that basically got San Jose and basically got my Quakes team to the playoff last season when we won 3-2, and I was there, and that was probably the best day of my life as a Quakes fan. I mean, it was just, the emotion of that game was just absolutely crazy, and the fact that now we're playing Minnesota again, it's just, I'll tell you what, when I walk into the stadium tomorrow, it's going to be interesting. It's such a special moment, and especially the fact that we're playing Minnesota, it's going to really reminds me of what happened a couple of months ago when we made the playoff in probably the most kind of dramatic way you can imagine. I mean, it almost looked like a Hollywood script the way we made the playoffs last season by scoring a 93rd minute winner, and also kind of a typical Quakes kind of way with them scoring late and have that never say die mentality. But I think in this game it shouldn't come to that, and I'll be surprised if it actually comes to that. Minnesota is just, they look like the same team from last season, and you know, and the team from last season wasn't that good. So I really think the Quakes should easily beat Minnesota here. They should easily dismantle that. It shouldn't come down to another 93rd minute winner. Hopefully not. My heart just cannot take it there. But yeah, next up, it's the Sunday game. These are all the Sunday game, as I put there. These are all the Saturday game. And the next one is probably one of the game that a lot of people are looking forward to, and it's Seattle versus LAFC. Obviously, a lot of people are excited to see how LAFC play and how, Bob Bradley's team will do against the team that almost won the MLS Cup last year. And by the way, I actually watched Seattle's CCL game against Sand Tequila or something like that, and they won 4-0. It was a pretty good performance for Seattle. They kind of really took it up a notch in the second half. I mean, the first half was sort of dead for them, but the second half they kind of took things more serious and scored 4 goals against the El Salvadorian side. And for this game, I really think it's going to be really tough for LAFC to win this one. And for LAFC, there's been a lot of hypes around this team, but like I said in the preview video or the prediction video, even though there's a lot of hype with this team, there's also a lot of problems with this team. And the depth is obviously the first problem. The second problem with this team is that there's just so many unproven players on this team, and so many kind of like MLS veterans that is either unproven or is just kind of like young upcoming stars. So it's really hard to see how LAFC, of course, can beat Seattle. And also, the Sounders usually do not lose at CenturyLink Field. They are pretty much unbeatable at CenturyLink Field. And also the fact that expansion team usually never do well in the first game of the season. Heck, even last year, Atlanta lost their first game of the season, and they were at home against the Red Bulls, and they lost. So and I really don't remember the last time an expansion team actually won their first game. I think the Whitecaps might have done that, but that was all the way back in 2011 or stuff like that, and they were like one of the few teams that actually won their first game of their history. So yeah, and against Seattle, which is a very good team, and it's on the road, I just think that that's just too much for LAFC, and I think Seattle should be able to beat this one, even though they have a very short rest coming in to this game, and even a shorter rest coming into the next game when they have to go back to CCL and then play Chivas, which I'm not sure if that one is at home. I think that might be a home game, or it could be a road game. It might be that they have to travel to Guadalajara for that CCL quarterfinal game in midweek. But yeah, moving on to the other Cascadia team, Vancouver, as they play against Montreal. This is always a very kind of unique matchup because you have two Canadian teams, and these two Canadian teams usually don't meet each other a lot because Vancouver is from the Western Conference, Montreal is in the Eastern Conference. Vancouver, of course, lost to the Sounders in the second round, while Montreal did not make the playoffs. They actually finished in 8th place, and I don't think Montreal is going to make the playoffs either this season because this is just a rebuilding season. They're trying to get young with their players and try to bring in some up talented kind of player. And for the Whitecaps, obviously this is a good chance for them to get off to a good start against a Montreal team that potentially is not going to, I don't think Montreal will really give Vancouver a lot of trouble. For Vancouver, it's going to be interesting what kind of style they will play. Would they still stick with that counter-attacking style that they do, where they just completely break apart the team whenever they go on the break? Or will they finally find a way to play some possession football and actually break teams down so that they don't always have to go on the break? It's going to be very interesting to see what Vancouver does this, but I really think Vancouver should win this one. This should be a pretty easy win against a very kind of weak and rebuilding kind of Montreal team. But either way, moving on to the last two games, and I actually don't know how many minutes we have. We're about 20 minutes into this video, so it's pretty quick. Sporting KC versus NYCFC. Ooh, this is a very good one. And I'll tell you what, if there is 10 games here, if there is one that I am looking forward to besides probably this one, it's probably this one, because these are two heavyweight from their respective conference. Sporting KC will definitely be one of the toughest team and one of the team that potentially could finish in the top 3 in the Western Conference, while NYCFC are pretty much the same. They're definitely going to finish the top 3 in the Eastern Conference and potentially challenge TFC for that Eastern Conference crown. And when I look at this game, I really think that this is it's really a defense versus offense kind of game. It's kind of a defense versus attack. You got the defense of SKC or Sporting KC, that lockdown defense that featured the likes of Aiko Para, Matt Hedges, and Tim Melia, even though Melia is a goalkeeper. And then you got a NYCFC attack that has the likes of Villa, Rodney Harris, Max C. Morales, and also Jesus Medina. And it's going to be interesting to see who, of course, win that duel right there between the attacking threat of NYCFC versus the stingy defense of Sporting KC. And, for this, I think if NYCFC score early and they score a couple of goals early on, I think Sporting KC might be in trouble, because Sporting KC doesn't really have as good as an attack that NYCFC has. And NYCFC also have a pretty good defense, but it's not as good as Sporting KC. If there is a team that just have absolute lockdown defense, it is going to be Sporting KC. So for this one, defense, of course, wins championship. Defense, of course, wins games. But I think this could be a draw. I really think that this could potentially be a draw, mainly because Sporting KC is playing at home, and they tend to be very good at home, and that is pretty much the case for every Western Conference team. I mean, last season, unless you're not LA Galaxy, you probably have a home record that is about 500. I mean, the Western Conference was very good at every single team in the Western Conference was very good at home, but they just suck on the road. And for Sporting KC, that is the case for them, and because of that, I think it's going to be probably a draw. And I won't be surprised if any of these teams will win, because this is going to be a very good one. This is a very kind of early season duel between two of the best team, and maybe you could kind of even say that this might be an early MLS Cup final kind of preview. You never know. I mean, both of these teams can definitely do it, although having said that, both of these teams last season really just lay an egg in the playoffs. I mean, yeah, I don't even need to say any more about it. But either way, next up, it's LA Galaxy versus Portland Timbers. It seemed like everybody in the West Coast just hate LA Galaxy for some reason. I mean, unless if you're not the Whitecaps in the West, kind of like the West Coast kind of team, those 5 West Coast teams. Everybody hates LA. I mean, Seattle hates LA, Portland hates LA, San Jose obviously hates LA, and of course their intercity rival LAFC hates them also. So yeah, I don't get it. Like, why does everybody hate why does every West Coast team tend to hate LA? Is it because of the success that they had and that they are like the winningest MLS team in history? But yeah, I mean, this game, LA Galaxy versus Portland, over the years there's been a lot of kind of big moments in this game. Whether it was last year, there was like a sending off in the first game of the season between the Galaxy and the Timbers, and the Galaxy actually won that game. That was like one of the rare home wins that they had all season long. And what happened was that one of the Timber players, I think it was Diego Chara, that flopped it. He took a dive, and then Gerald Van Dam got sent off, and then of course LA then decided to do a shooting star memes. If you haven't watched this, this is just so funny. You should check it out on YouTube. But yeah, and then of course a couple years ago, I remember Portland beat LA at StubHub Center 5-2. And LA was like leading 2-1 at one point in that game, and they just completely turned the table and score like 4 unanswered to win like 5-2. So there are a lot of very good games between these two teams, and you know, for this season coming into this season for these both teams, obviously LA has made a lot of improvement. They have completely overhauled their back line, and they signed a couple more key players like Perry Kitchen and also Ola Kamara. And they're definitely going to also get a couple of guys back. You know, Sebastian Lletget should be back with the team. And also they have a lot of good attacking threat with the Dos Santos brother and also Roman Alessandrini with the team. So this is definitely a good LA Galaxy team, even though I still question the fact that whether the chemistry of this team will actually work. And as for Portland, you know, they got a new manager. They got a couple of young guys coming in for this team. They're trying to put the pressure off a little bit on Diego Valeri, that pretty much just carried that team last season on his back. And yeah, I think this is another very good one to watch. It's going to be another one that's hard to call. I'm going to say it's going to be a draw on this one. And yeah, that of course is pretty much it for the first week. Obviously, I'll try to see if I can like watch most of this game. I know for a fact that I cannot watch like the Saturday afternoon game because I have to go to this one, and then on Sunday I have to do like a sports hop series, so I'm gonna miss like these games. But I think I definitely am gonna watch this one. I might watch a little bit of this when I get to the stadium. But it depends on if the stadium Wi-Fi is actually good and I actually can like watch these games. But yeah, I'll make sure I'll watch it, and if I do miss the game, I'll watch the highlights of it to see how it goes. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think are the result of all these 10 games. Give me your prediction for all these 10 games. And yeah, I'll tell you what, MLS is back, guys, and I am obviously very excited. We are literally one day away from the beginning of the new season. Well, for all 20 teams, except for maybe Chicago, Colorado, and New York. You guys will have to wait another week. But either way, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button, and yeah, I, of course, will see you guys next time.